Adventuring. Crawlers. Those who dare the lost halls and caverns of the Shadowdark are called by many names. Crawlers, delvers, explorers, adventurers, treasure hunters. In this chapter, you will learn how to crawl with the best of them. Whether you are exploring a lightless barrow mound or the shrouded forest of ELD, the rules herein will guide you. Outside the sheet. The first step to crawling is understanding your environment and imagining an action you want to take. Do not simply scour your character sheet for ideas and options. Your crawling career depends on your ability to think outside the sheet. Imagine what you would really do if you were in your character's situation. Do you see a suit of armor in an alcove? Maybe you lift the helm's visor and make sure nothing is looking back at you. Do you hear faint voices behind a rotting, wooden door? Maybe you creep up and press your ear against it to hear what's happening on the other side. Is a band of orcs chasing you and your companions down a hallway? Maybe tearing the decrepit tapestries from the walls will hamper their pursuit. None of the above ideas are listed on a character sheet. Although you should use your stats, spells, gear, and talents, do not limit yourself only to those. Onward. The next sections detail the core rules of Shadowdark role-playing game. Armed with your dice and your wits, you are ready to learn the legendary art of crawling. Stride boldly into the darkness. Rolling the dice. Advantage. When you have advantage on a roll, it means you're in a strong position to succeed. For example, you might be attacking from the high ground, or you might have just failed at a task and now have insight into how to succeed if you try again. To roll with advantage, roll the same die twice and use the better result. Disadvantage. When you have disadvantage on a roll, it means you're in a strong position to fail. For example, you might be trying to strike an enemy while blinded by sand, or navigating a maze while confused by disorienting poison. To roll with disadvantage, roll the same die twice and use the worse result. Canceling. If you have both advantage and disadvantage on a roll, they cancel each other out. Natural 20. When the results of a 20-sided die roll shows a 20, what you're doing succeeds to your maximum capacity. An attack roll automatically hits and is a critical hit, see damage on page 89. Natural 1. When the results of a 20-sided die roll shows a 1, what you're doing fails to your maximum capacity. An attack roll automatically misses and might even strike an ally. The D6 decider. If there's a random chance for an outcome, such as whether a drop torch goes out, the GM calls for a 6-sided dice roll. If the result shows a face value of 1 through 3, the results is the worst outcome for the players, and if the result is a 4 through a 6, results is the better outcome for the players. Luck tokens. Sometimes the Game Master awards a luck token to a player for exceptional role-playing, heroism, or just plain coolness. Each player can only have one luck token at a time. You can cash in a luck token to reroll any roll you just made. You must use the new result. You can also give your luck token to a companion. How many to give? The Game Master might award 3 to 5 luck tokens per player during a session with a pulpy, heroic feel. Alternatively, the GM might only give out 1 luck token per player during a game session that is grim, difficult, and dark. Game Masters, if your players make big sacrifices, give moving speeches, or attempt incredibly daring maneuvers, it might be worthy of rewarding luck tokens, whether or not the character's actions were successful or not. Using stats. Certain tasks fall under specific stats. The following examples illustrate common uses for each one. The difference between intelligence and wisdom can be tricky. If in doubt, remember wisdom is for sensory acuity and instinct, while intelligence covers knowledge and logic. Strength, abbreviated STR, is used in actions like smashing open locked doors, bending the bars of a prison cell or sewer grate, lifting a large rock overhead, stopping a runaway ship's helm from spinning. Dexterity, abbreviated DEX, is used in actions like diving away from a trap that flings a hail of needles. Disabling a tripwire without activating it. Scaling a sheer castle wall. Fooling onlookers with sleight of hand tricks. Constitution abbreviated CON is used in actions like holding your breath underwater. Withstanding intense pain. Resisting the effects of poison. Intelligence abbreviated INT is used in actions like giving first aid to a dying character. Recalling the path through a twisting maze. Finding food and water sources in the wilderness. Wisdom abbreviated WIS is used in actions like spotting a well-hidden enemy. Determining the direction of a faint noise or smell. Deciphering the sounds on the other side of a door. Charisma abbreviated CHA is used in actions like performing ventriloquism. Applying a disguise. Rallying allies who are terrified by a monster. Making checks. When to roll. Usually, you succeed at what you are trained to do without needing to roll a check. For example, a wizard is always able to read magical runes, and a thief always finds a trap if searching in the right area. If you take the time to scan the sky for threats or examine a stretch of wall for a secret door, you simply succeed. Social encounters usually rely on what you say rather than charisma checks. Narrating a moving speech or using secret information you gathered to influence a non-player character does not require a check to succeed. The Game Master asks for a check when the following is true: the action has a negative consequence for failure. The action requires skill, there is time pressure. Difficulty class. The 4 standard difficulty classes represent how difficult of a challenge an action is, and what the player's check result needs to meet or exceed in order to be successful. If the challenge is easy, the difficulty class number is 9. This covers actions like leaping a narrow chasm, sneaking up on an inattentive guard. If the challenge is normal, the difficulty class number is 12. This covers actions like kicking open a stuck door, picking a poor lock. If the challenge is hard, the difficulty class number is 15. This covers actions like swimming against a strong current, giving first aid to stop a character from dying. If the challenge is extreme, the difficulty class is 18. This covers actions like climbing a slippery cliff one-handed, restraining a frenzied lion. Contested checks. If multiple creatures are working against each other on a conflicting task, a contested check decides who succeeds. To make a contested check, each participant rolls one relevant stat check at the same time, even if it's not their turn. The highest result wins. In the event of a tie, re-roll the dice until a winner is declared. Time. Real time. Time passes in the game world at the same pace it's passing in the real world. 1 minute or hour of game time is equal to 1 minute or hour in real time. This matters for tracking light sources, because most light sources only last for 1 hour of real time. If you can't track real time in your game, assume 1 hour is equal to 10 rounds. Turns and rounds. A turn is a player's moment to describe what their character does to the Game Master. Players act one by one on each of their turns. Some turns need a bit of room to breathe. A character who is speaking with someone can make a few reasonable exchanges back and forth. A round is considered complete when each person has completed their turn. Time passes. Every moment in the game does not have to be accounted for in real time. For example, if the characters want to spend 10 minutes examining a room from top to bottom, the Game Master and players can agree that time passes. When time passes, the Game Master and players move any timers down by that amount. Minutes pass. Effects with a duration of rounds expire. The Game Master rolls for one random encounter that occurs on the result of a 1 to 3 on a 6-sided dice while this time is passing. When the time that passes is measured in hours and days, the effects with a duration shorter than the time passed expire. The Game Master uses Overland Travel rules to check for encounters that occur while this time is passing, see page 90. After resolving encounters, the game world fast-forwards to the new point in time. Turn order. Initiative. Shadowdark, the role-playing game, is played in turn order right from the start. At the beginning of the game master establishes initiative, or the order in which the players act. Everyone rolls a 20-sided dice and adds their dexterity modifier. The game master adds the highest dexterity modifier of any monsters, if relevant. The person who rolled the highest takes the first turn, and the turn order moves clockwise from that individual. Player turn 1. The player counts down any personal timers for spells and other effects. 2. The player takes an action and may move up to near, split up in any way. The player can move near again if skipping an action. 3. The Game Master describes what happens as a result of the player's turn. Game Master turn 1. The Game Master counts down any timers not tracked by players. 2. The Game Master checks for a random encounter, if needed. 3. The Game Master takes actions and makes movements for any relevant creatures or environmental effects. 4. The Game Master describes what the characters notice as a result of steps 1 to 3. Encounters. An encounter occurs when a challenge presents itself that stops the character's progress. An encounter could include a monster charging out of the darkness, a sinkhole breaking open in the ground, or a town guard halting the characters. The Game Master rolls for the chance of an encounter every few rounds, depending on how dangerous the character's environment is. Crawling. The Shadowdark. The Shadowdark is any place where darkness, danger, and myth reign supreme. It could be in crumbling ruins, ancient mountain strongholds, or mysterious towers. It could be in gloomy forests, trap-laden pyramids, or haunted sea caves. As long as the characters are going into danger with swords, spells, and torches ready, they're going into the Shadowdark. Crawling rounds. Characters are in crawling rounds while not in combat. They are exploring, talking, and engaging with the environment. Vision. All characters need light to see, but that's not true for the darkness-adapted beings of the Shadowdark. Note that any area outside of a light source's illumination is in total darkness. Light sources. Most light sources last for up to an hour of real time and illuminate a limited area. Players have two options when lighting more than one light source at a time. 1. The newer light source rides along on the current timer. 2. Extinguish all old light sources. Start a new timer with the fresh light source. The Game Master can make rulings counter to the above. The purpose is to make tracking light timers simple, not frustrating. Total darkness. While in total darkness, a creature who is not darkness adapted has disadvantage on tasks it undertakes that require sight. Also, the environment becomes deadly. The Game Master checks for a random encounter every crawling round. Movement. Distances are broken up into close, 5 feet, near, up to 30 feet, and far, within sight during an encounter or scene. Climbing. Strength or dexterity check to climb half your speed. The climbing adventurer falls if the result of the check fails by 5 or more from your difficulty check target number. Falling. You take 1 6-sided dice worth of damage for every 10 feet you fall. Moving through occupied spaces. You can move freely through spaces that allies occupy. You must pass a strength or dexterity check to move through enemy-occupied spaces. An example would be the choke point of a doorway. The ally would allow freedom of movement, while an enemy might try and block your passage. The check that you make to move through the enemy's spot is a contested check. Swimming. Swimming movement is half your speed and will require a strength check in rough water. Adventurers need to make a constitution check each round to hold your breath. On a failed constitution check, the adventurer will take 1 6-sided dice worth of damage a round until you exit the hazard. Regroup. During crawling rounds, the Game Master can ask the players if they want to regroup. To regroup, any player characters within eyesight or earshot of each other who are able to move freely may immediately move within near of each other. Then, initiative continues as normal. Conditions. Some effects impose a condition on a character, such as blindness from a blast of fungal spores or the inability to move while tangled in a giant spider web. Advantage and disadvantage apply to most situations, as does common sense. For example, a blinded character has disadvantage on tasks requiring sight, and a character stuck in a giant spider web can't move until freed. Actions. While crawling, characters can take actions that might include prying a gem from a statue, sneaking up on a slumbering manticore, swimming to the bottom of an oily pool of water, tapping on a suspicious wall to check for a hidden door, scanning a room for signs of hidden enemies. Giving a rousing speech to a group of fearful townsfolk are all examples of actions that your character can take. Resting. Resting. Injured characters can rest to recover from their wounds. To rest, a character must consume a ration and sleep for 8 hours. Sleep can be broken up for the accomplishment of light and routine tasks, such as taking a turn on watch. Interruption. Each stressful interruption of rest, including combat, requires an affected character to make a DC 12 Constitution check. On a failure, the character consumes a ration but gains no benefit from resting. Success. A character who successfully rests regains all lost hit points and recovers any stat damage that was not permanent. Additionally, some talents, spells, or items regain their ability to be used after a successful rest. Danger level. Characters can rest anywhere, but doing so inside a dungeon or perilous environment carries a high chance of failure due to the risk of a random encounter. While the characters are resting in a dangerous environment, the Game Master checks for random encounters using the Overland Travel cadence, if unsafe. Check every 3 hours. If risky. Check every 2 hours. If deadly. Check every hour. Campfire. In many cases, adventurers need a light source while resting. Characters can combine 3 torches into a campfire that can't be moved once lit. A campfire lasts up to 8 hours while at least one character remains near to it, and it casts light out to a near distance. Stealth and surprise. Hiding and sneaking. Creatures who are hiding or sneaking must succeed on dexterity checks to go undetected by other creatures within eyesight or earshot. The Game Master determines the frequency and difficulty of the check based on the environment. The Game Master might secretly roll the check for a character if knowledge of the outcome impacts the situation. Hiding limitations. Creatures can't hide while other creatures are able to see them, even at a casual glance. It might also be impossible to hide if there's nowhere for a creature to stay out of sight. Detecting. Detecting a hiding or sneaking creature requires the searcher to actively look or listen. Looking in the right place automatically reveals a hidden creature. Otherwise, the searcher must succeed on a wisdom check to perceive a hiding or sneaking creature. Surprise. A creature who begins its turn undetected has the advantage of surprise. If combat hasn't started yet, those with surprise take 1 turn before the combat initiative roll, see combat initiative. On page 88. A creature has advantage on attack rolls against surprised targets. Attacking from hiding gives away the attacker's position afterwards unless the Game Master determines otherwise. Combat. When a fight breaks out, combat rounds begin. Determine surprise. The Game Master determines if any creatures are unaware of each other. A creature who surprises another takes 1 turn before a new initiative order is rolled. Combat initiative. After surprise turns, the Game Master calls for new initiative. Everyone makes a dexterity check. The Game Master uses the highest dexterity modifier of any monsters for the bonus on this check. The person with the highest result takes the first turn. Turns go clockwise from that person. Combat turns. Characters can take 1 action and move near on their turn, splitting up the movement however they want. Characters can move near again if they don't take an action. Actions. There are 4 types of actions, and they are melee attack, ranged attack, spell attack, improvised action, and multitask. Melee attack. Melee attacks use melee weapons. Roll 1 20-sided dice and add your strength modifier and talent bonuses. You hit the target if your total is equal to or greater than its armor class. Ranged attack. Ranged attacks use ranged weapons. Roll 1 20-sided dice, adding your dexterity modifier and talent bonuses. You hit the target if your total is equal to or greater than its armor class. Cast a spell. Casting a spell takes 1 action, see spellcasting on page 44. Improvise. Do an improvised action, such as swinging across a ravine on a vine. The Game Master might determine it requires a stat check or attack roll. Multitask. Characters can do small, parallel tasks on their turns, such as standing up, speaking, activating a magic item, or quaffing a potion. This doesn't typically use their action. Damage. When you hit a target with an attack or spell, you damage it. Roll your weapon or spell's damage dice, adding talent bonuses. The Game Master subtracts that amount from the target's hit points. Knockout. You can choose to knock a creature unconscious instead of killing it if you reduce it to 0 hit points. Critical hit. You deal a critical hit if you roll a natural 20 on an attack roll or spellcasting check. For a weapon, double its damage dice on the attack. For a spell, you may double one of its numerical effects, see page 45. Terrain. Attacking or casting a spell that targets a creature that is hiding at least half its body behind interposing terrain has disadvantage on the attack roll. If you can't see a creature at all due to terrain, you can't target it. Creatures can only move half the normal distance through terrain that hampers free movement, such as ice or deep mud. Morale. Enemies who are reduced to half their ranks, or half their hit points for a solo enemy, will flee if they fail a difficulty check 15 wisdom check. For large groups, the Game Master makes 1 check for the entire group using the leader's modifier. Death. A character who goes to 0 hit points falls unconscious and is dying. A character who goes above 0 hit points wakes up and is no longer dying. Death timer. A dying character rolls a 4-sided dice plus their constitution modifier, minimum 1 total, on their turn. They die in that many rounds unless healed or stabilized. On each of the character's subsequent turns, that player rolls a 20-sided dice. On a natural 20, the character rises with 1 hit point. Stabilize. An intelligent being can give first aid to a dying creature at close range. On a successful difficulty check 15 intelligence check, the target stops dying, but is still unconscious. Death. A character who perishes is retired from the game. Overland Travel. The world is still perilous for fortune seekers outside the gloomy Shadowdark. When traveling overland, these rules add to the crawling rules. Turns and time. The game moves in initiative order as normal while traveling overland, and groups often travel in chunks that comprise several hours. Use the time passes rules found on page 82 as needed. Check for random encounters using the following cadence during overland travel. If unsafe, check every 3 hours. If risky, check every 2 hours. If deadly, check every hour. Light. If needed, determine how much time remains on the current light source by rolling 1d6 times 10 minutes. There is rarely total darkness outside, even at night. Navigation for player characters in unfamiliar territory must have their navigator make an intelligence check upon exiting a hex. On a failure, the group moves into a random, adjacent hex. Food and water. Player characters can go 3 days without water and 3 weeks without food. After that, player characters take 1d8 damage per day that can't be healed until eating or drinking. Ways to travel. Player characters can cross a number of 6-mile hexes per day based on travel method. A constitution check must be passed for each extra hex attempted. If walking, 2 hexes can be traveled in a day. If mounted, 4 hexes can be traveled in a day. If sailing, 8 hexes can be traveled in a day. Difficult terrain is 1/2 the normal hexes a day. And if the terrain is arduous terrain, only 1 hex can be traveled in a day. Downtime. Between adventures, you can choose to undertake one downtime activity. Carousing. Carousing is a way for you to convert the coin you've earned into experience points and other benefits. You'll likely come out of a carousing event with new non-player character contacts, whether friend or foe. You might even acquire a new magic item if you're bold and lucky enough. Carousing can last for several days of in-game time, so the Game Master will use the time passes rule on page 82 as needed. If you want to play out a gambling scene in detail, you can use the Wizards and Thieves game on page 94 to determine who wins a bet and how many valuables change hands. See page 92 for more details on carousing. Learning. Your character may wish to learn a new skill during downtime. In order to learn a new skill, you must find a capable instructor who is willing to teach you. You can't typically learn another class's or ancestry's unique talents, but you can learn auxiliary skills. Examples include a new language, or how to ride a sandworm using a harness. Learning enables you to do new actions or gives you advantage on certain checks. Work with the Game Master to determine what you can try to learn. Then, make an extreme, difficulty check 18, intelligence check. If you succeed, you learn the new skill. If you fail, you can try again as your next downtime activity, this time lowering the difficulty of the intelligence check by 1 step. From extreme to hard, hard to normal, normal to easy. Carousing. When you return from the Shadowdark, you can carouse to celebrate your heroic exploits. To carouse, each participant pitches in for the cost of the event. Then, each participant rolls 1d8 plus the event's bonus to determine their own outcome. Outcomes: each character gains the XP noted for their result along with any other ill or positive effects. If the group decides to play out the results of an individual roll, the entire carousing group is usually present for the events. Carousing events have a gold piece cost associated with an event and provides a bonus when determining the carousing outcome, from the chart on page 93. A worthy night of drinking and festivity cost 30 gold pieces, but provide no bonus. A full day and night of revelry, gambling, and recounting your exploits cost 100 gold pieces, and provides a +1 bonus. 2 days of crawling dozens of taverns to sing, buy rounds, and celebrate cost 300 gold pieces, and provides a +2 bonus. A 3-day voyage into the finest food, drink, and gambling you can find cost 600 gold pieces, and provides a +3 bonus. A hazy, week-long bender that runs multiple well-known taverns dry costs 900 gold pieces, and provides a +4 bonus. A spirited fete lasting 10 days that attracts hordes of revelers and takes over an entire town or a city district cost 1,200 gold pieces, and provides a +5 bonus. 2 legendary weeks of drinking and debauchery widespread enough to take over a whole city. It attracts countless celebrants, including famous nobles and bards. The streets run red with wine, cost 1,800 gold pieces, and provides a +6 bonus. Roll an 8-sided dice and add the bonus to the roll. The result should be a number between 1 and 14. Use the chart on page 93 to determine the outcome and benefit. Game Masters ask your players for input on the time that passes. Your players' input can be used for future adventures and reoccurring non-player characters. I hope that you have found this useful and have a great day.